All right, welcome back to another episode of the Critics Collective. I'm Legacy Lingo, and we have the Dad Panther here who is loading. Today, we are here to discuss with you guys the 688, which is a Netflix original series that recently just dropped. This one is actually something that I've been looking forward to for a minute, so I'm actually pretty excited to talk about it. But before we get into it, I do want to ask you guys, if you like the content that we're putting out, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, hit all the alerts, and make sure you drop in comments. Let us know how you feel about this content. Every little interaction helps the page grow. All right. So again, as I mentioned, we're talking about 688. The IMDB synopsis reads as so. During World War II, 855 women joined the fight to fix a 3-year backlog of undelivered mail. Faced with discrimination and a country devastated by war, they managed to sort through more than 17 million pieces of mail ahead of time. Wow. All right, that is actually pretty spot on with the film itself. Dad Panther, tell me what your initial impression was when you came across this movie.
My initial impressions was this was a story that I didn't know anything about. And so me enjoying history, especially history of people of color and people who don't get that story out there, I was excited about it until I found out Tyler Perry was doing it. And then trauma struck me. And I wasn't excited. The Netflix thing made it sound good, but then brought to you by. I'm like, oh shoot.
That is a fair assessment, a fair initial impression. I'm gonna say my initial impression. It was like you said, it was a story that I didn't know about. So I was interested to find out, but I was also hesitant to watch because my initial impression, I was worried that this is gonna feel it's just gonna be too heavy. I'm not in the right headspace to truly get involved in this and get watching it. And so it felt like a chore at first because I'm like, we need to watch it because it's new content and I want to get it reviewed, but I was worried it was going to be too heavy and take me to a space that I didn't want to go to. So that was my initial impression. Wasn't excited about it at all. So highs and lows, sir. Would you like to start or would you like me to start?
Oh, you can start. You can take it. Go ahead.
Okay. So for me, highs, this is a story that actually needed to be told. I thought that was a plus. Definitely had no idea about this. Didn't know that there was a documentary that had dropped a few years back, or a couple of years back. Yeah, 2019, I believe. There's a documentary in 2019 telling this story, and they decided to make a movie about it. So that was definitely a high for me. A high and a low at once. The level of racism and the petty hate was strong, which was both good and bad for me. It was good that it was definitely plastered out there because you got too many people nowadays that still try to act like racism doesn't exist, or or they act like you guys are just sensitive, So putting it out there was good. Showing how petty and how disgusting it could be. Because in some places it's still to that degree where they will do anything and they will sacrifice their own happiness just to see you fail. So them putting it out there like that was good, but it was also bad for me because, like I said, I did not want to get into this mental space. I did not want to be brought down feeling frustrated watching people of color or anybody go through situations like this where there's so much hate and there's so much pettiness and things of that nature against them. So for me, it was a good and bad thing that it was showcased, that they didn't try and cover it up or sugarcoat it, but it was just uncomfortable for me to watch. It was very frustrating. Another low for me was the Tyler Perry aspect of it all. The Tyler Perry aspect was it basically came in with the acting of a lot of the younger females. I felt like the acting was a lot over the top I felt like it was fit for a stage play, not fit for a film, not fit for motion pictures. And it kept taking me out. I felt like they were projecting lines like they were on the stage trying to make sure people all the way in the back hear it. And some of the tropes and stuff they were doing were a little exaggerated. I actually don't mind getting a period piece where yes, we may have had a certain way of speaking, but it just doesn't need to be so exaggerated, so exaggerated. And that was really taking me out myself. Um, but because this is a true story, I don't have much that I can say or can't say. I thought it was impressive what they were able to accomplish, but another low for me was that even though this is based on true, I felt like there might have been some exaggeration with the system that they created. Some of that stuff just sounded like pure BS. But please don't come for me. If it really happened that way, that's fine. But for me, it was still hard to believe. I was like, it's not really making any sense to me. But hey, if this happened, it happened, and that's kind of another reason why I don't really care for reviewing true stories, because there's a lot of stuff I could say that I wish I would have seen, or wish it would have happened, or wish it would have gone story. But if it's based on true events, there's only so much you can critique, you know. So, sir, I'll turn it over to you. Tell me how you feel about this film.
I'm gonna start with the negatives of it. With all due respect, there's so many. Tyler Perry picked this task himself with his studio, and I will say I felt like, man, it would have been something interesting to see another director take this, or even this story be told again. Because I mean, how many times do we hear about Red Tails or Tuskegee Airmen in some type of form, and we get different stories and iterations of them. So I feel like we could still tell more about this story from someone's lens. And I've mentioned before with, certain movies where I'm like, it had just the right touch of, I can't express it, but like a certain feeling, and then look and find out, oh, it's a female director. Like that's exactly why they were getting the emotion, why they were getting the authentic feel of whatever the story was, whether action or love or drama. And I could tell that it was missing something of it. It wasn't necessarily missing its soul, but there was something of it that is kind of like, you hear a song that's soulful and you hear somebody else singing, and you're like, it's not seasoned. It's just missing something. The tropes were there. The Tyler Perry tropes were still there. I'm just keeping it real. You can take the darkest woman that you saw. They were all beautiful. That's a pro, the cast. But you could see the darkest one, the most heavy set one, not in a negative way, gorgeous and beautiful. Don't get me wrong. But I was like, as soon as I saw them, I'm like, that's going to be this person. That's going to be this person. This is going to be this person. And sure enough, that's exactly what it was. I'm like, why does this person have to be the angry, upset one that's trying to figure out how to control their emotions? And I'm like, there's too much of that. And this is literally the battlefield for it. Like it shouldn't be here. It should be a safe place. I felt like they missed a lot of opportunities in this to tell us, hey, how did they do this? They missed the most crucial part, which was the task. In any movie, when it gets to the end and it starts showing you certain things and it tells you what they accomplished, 17 million pieces of mail, and they did it in half the time. And you didn't show that. And I'm sure if you were in theaters, people would have cheered for that moment. And I think you missed showcasing what the task was and how the task was done. I think there was issues where you brought in the love interest, kind of flirted with it. You don't need that. You put that, it's so many movies where it's a woman's story and there has to be love involved. And I don't understand why. There was nothing. There were beautiful women. There were talented women. We knew love was there. It wasn't important. The story was more important than the love interest that was fabricated. We know that they had children, generations that span. That's why the story is still being told in real life. I felt like that was a miss. I felt like you added men to the story. What I mean by that, not by the men for the love interest. The dynamic that kept shoving to you that women had it tough because of men and trying to have that footing, that still happens to this day, regardless if it's a person of color or not. And I felt like you didn't have to beat us over the head with it because we knew that it was a timepiece. The race, we understand racism and trauma and stuff that happens, even if it's an outsider seeing it for the first time. And I felt like, man, I'm like, you're just beating these elements over the head versus the challenge that is there, that is just as daunting. The missed opportunity they had with it is, if they made it a timely piece, similar to like Squid Games, without spoiling anything, certain shows make you feel like they're talking about now, that what you're going through now in your life. And you're like, man, that's crazy. because in the military, there are women who are dealing with harassment and death and all this other stuff that's happening to this day. And you could have like that story that was there, the CG. I believe he did it on his own place, but there were certain scenes, the White House, you can see that it looked like it was, computer generated backgrounds and stuff like that. And I just felt like if we could find a different way, if we could have cut those shots away so that we didn't lose the universe he placed us in. But I will say there was some bravo stuff. The music and the pace I thought was good for this. There are moments like in wrestling, they say you got to hit your moments and make it shine and stretch it. There are moments where I was like, you better, and they would do it. And the emotion was there. Almost like it felt like a little bit of the color purple at times, where it was like you felt that connection to these characters and you were like on your toes about not the action, but them standing up for themselves. I would say also, again, the tone and the cast I thought was great. Now, with those pros and cons, it made me think of stuff that stills with war and straight stories, like the Masters of the Air that's on Apple, or Hidden Figures is another one, or Devotion with Jonathan Mayers, where they did a really good job of getting you that timely piece. But it's just trying to stick the landing. As far as this one, the last one I'll say is a negative was the facts. Without spoiling anything, I'm sorry, it's a true story. There are some deaths that are going to happen. Those deaths were not happening the way that it portrayed. It was a moment, don't get me wrong, but that's not how those individuals lost their life. The other thing that I'll go into it is, and I could be off on the year, it was the summer of 1944 where basically the war was kind of won for the Allies. And the deaths that happened, I think it was 3 or 4 individuals, respectfully, they passed away before that time period. And some of them actually on the battlefronts. That is why in the movie where she says you couldn't give us a proper burial, without having that shown, you don't have that connection. So these women lost their lives before the Allies got victory in the history books, proving that these deaths would have been more significant and should have been more significant. So that's my highs, that's my lows, my pros and cons.
Oh man, I knew you was gonna bring it home. That's why I wanted to go first. I knew you was gonna bring it home. I love it. Yeah, you made some quality points, and I agree with everything you said 1000%. Yeah. So we are going to go ahead and rate this thing. It's going to be interesting. I'm curious to know where you're going to land. I have my number ready. If you guys are watching, go ahead and get ready to put your rating in the comments. Let us know how you feel. And if you haven't by now, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the alert button, and drop a comment going forward. So we have accolades here up to 5. 5 being the best, meaning excellent, a must watch, highly recommended for all viewers. 4, good, worth watching, but has notable flaws. 3 is average, some enjoyable moments, but lacks significant impact. 2, below average, some redeeming qualities, but generally disappointing. 1, poor quality, not recommended. And 0, horrible, absolute trash, like Venom, Save the Last Dance, and The Craven that just came out. This is in that same universe. So you do the math.
Sony was
All
like,
right.
I don't understand. We thought we had a good one with Craven. It's a good movie.
Yeah. Okay, so Dad Panther, how many accolades are you giving this film, sir?
Before I get the accolades, I want to say if you want to keep checking stuff out, regardless if you see movies, the Tiki Airmen, you have Red Tails, Buffalo Soldiers, Glory Antoine Fisher, Men of Honor, A Soldier Story, The Five Bloods are some movies that you can go ahead and take a look at that will kind of get you in this same direction. I'm going to give it a 4. The reason why I'm going to give it a 4 was the story was more impactful than maybe the execution. It was an amazing story. It's an okay movie. It's probably the best, in my opinion, the best Tyler Perry movie he's ever put together. I would like him to tell more stories because he gets these. He has the eyeballs and the studio and the money. I would love to see him continue to challenge these true stories, these real gripping stories. So I'm going to give it a 4.
A 4. That's actually very fair, very generous. And you're right. The story is far more important than the shortcomings of the film. But for me, it's still going to get a 3. It's very average for me. I felt like, especially with some of the points you made towards the end, the biggest point of the story was lost. They kind of barely shined a light on it at the end. It should have, and I know this is probably a cliche, but it should have been more of a montage of their success and then and also showing certain people's disgust at the fact that they're continuing to be successful with 17 million pieces of mail from 3 years of backlog done in 3 months when you only gave them 6 to do what you thought was impossible. All
Mhm.
right, sorry, don't want to. I'm start preaching. All
No,
right,
no, but
so
hey, but you're correct because like I remember we watched Griselda. I don't know if we had the review that for Netflix. They mentioned, doing a pew pew on a motorcycle and how she added that to the history of not just action films, but other activities
changed the
that
game
happen
in
with
general.
it.
Yeah,
And you're telling me that none of this was used in how mail has been transferred thus far.
mhm,
And it's unfortunate, but when you get to the end of the movies, it tells me something about it when you see the picture of the real life person, and it's great. It's a nice touch. But to me, I love it when they do a transition so you can put the face with the actor you saw because you might not remember the name because they were called a
right.
nickname in the movie. And
Mhm.
I felt like that was just what I meant by like they missed the landing to have that transition that you probably would have gotten from like Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, so this this was definitely something that people should you guys should definitely still go watch. I feel like the story that needs to be told, and I hope Tyler Perry does continue to try and get stories like this told, because I had no idea the situation was out there. So that is a very big positive, even though the movie itself could have been better, in my opinion. If this review has pushed you guys to go watch it, let us know in the comments. And then again, after you watch it, come back, let us know how you feel about it. We're looking forward to interacting with you guys. And yeah, I think I'm gonna just leave it there. All right. So this was 6888, which is available on Netflix. I am Legacy Lingo, and this is the Dad Panther, and we appreciate you guys joining us. We'll see you on the next one.